Hi there, Will here, and today I'm going to take you through some of my archive. Not the whole thing, obviously, because that would take a long while, but I'm going to show you and rescan some of the things that I feel I could get better colors out of, and also give you a bit of a rundown of some of the equipment I use in scanning and retouching things. I also managed to find the first roll of film I ever shot, so I'll give you a bit of an insight into that. And I suppose to get going, we'll move over to the scanning setup, which is somewhat less pretty than this, but a lot more functional. Before we get into actually scanning things though, I'm going to have to select some stuff to scan. And I can't do that here because the desk space is quite limited, so I'm going to go do that quick. And then probably once I've got like 10 or so frames to scan, we'll come chuck them through the machine and I'll show you how that works. Everything in my archive besides stuff from this year is all labeled in various kinds of folders. These folders are not very good. In fact, the majority of the folders that things are in are not very good. The only good folder I have is this film-specific print file one, which is wide enough so that your negatives can sit in it without sticking out. So I'm going to get a bunch more of those, I reckon. Also, the reason I'm sitting by the window is because my light table isn't working, so we're going back to the time of using the window as a light table. Righto. I've already made a bunch of selects out of only 2 of those folders of stuff from 2017 and 2019, mainly Mauritius and Dar es Salaam, I think, because I grew up in Dar es Salaam. But I'll talk about that as I'm scanning things. And in order to get scanning things, I'm going to turn on the Imacon, which is probably going to be a bit of a process because I'm going to have to turn this on like so, then wait for that light to blink solid green, and once it does that I'm going to have to walk around here and turn the computer on manually with a cable, because I plug the computer out by the cable, because every time we have a power cut here the computer turns on when the power turns on for whatever reason, because it's a Windows XP computer with a 50 gigabyte hard drive in it and like 4 gigs of RAM, I think. It's pretty high end for what it is, but it does have some quirks. Anyway, I'm going to plug that in and it'll turn on, and then you'll get to see the boot sequence on my Windows XP machine. This is what that looks like. Now, because it didn't reset properly, I'm going to hit F2 to load default values and continue. And we're going to boot into Windows XP. This computer runs on a completely separate keyboard and mouse to my main computer. Strictly 2000s, yeah? Anyway, once I've loaded into the Windows XP computer, I open FlexColor, which takes quite a while, and every time it boots it needs to update something, can't remember what it is. Firmware, there we go. It updates the firmware every time it boots, which is fun, but this is the only way it works. And just like that, we're pretty much ready to go. Of course, register later, because the Hasselblad servers no longer exist. And everything's ready to scan. I'm not going to run you through scanning or anything, because as I've said in many other videos, there's nothing I do in my scanning process that anyone on the internet that does any sort of vague color grading couldn't tell you, and I'd hate to feel like I'm repeating things that have already been covered, but in terms of loading things, normally I do it on my light table, but because my light table is busted, I'm going to do it on the Flex tight holder. I'm going to pick the first one that I'd like to scan, which is this photo of these lilies. If you want to see more of the process of like scanning with an Imacon, I've got a X5 video I did, which gives you a bunch of details on the machines and loading them and quality compared to a Nikon Coolscan even, but that video is also part of the reason why I haven't done a scanning video since then, because so many people got so upset with me for trying to provide a comparison for things that I decided, you know what, if you don't like it, I won't do it. Even though it's probably my most viewed video of all time, so that's testament to my slight lack of regard for views versus people calling me an idiot in the comments. I've just remembered that the issue I had with this scanning it in the first place was that it was developed poorly by someone by hand, so the colors are all over the show, so I'm probably about to put myself in a world of pain, but we'll see.
While our first frame is scanning there, I'll quickly give you a rundown of the gear in my computer setup. This isn't my normal computer setup, by the way. It's normally all together on a large desk, but that room is being renovated. The bathroom is being renovated, so there's dust everywhere and I don't want my stuff in there. But in terms of the things I have, for scanning, it's a Windows XP machine with a 50 gigabyte internal hard drive and 4 gigs of RAM, some random motherboard, and a monitor that talks to it, which uses a VGA cable, I think. Not that that's important. And then my actual machine, first scan done. My actual machine is a Windows 10 machine with an Asus motherboard and 2 different hard drives and an SSD, a terabyte hard drive, a 4 terabyte hard drive, and a 500 gig SSD. Both of the hard drives are Seagate Barracuda hard drives, because that's what I managed to find. It's got a Intel i7-7740K CPU and a GTX 1080 graphics card, which was pretty much top of the line when I built it, so I'm not upset about that. And I think that's about it in terms of the important things. 16 gigs RAM. One of the quirks of scanning with this Imacon is that the negs need to be cut into 2s, because otherwise they won't fit against the edge of the holder. So obviously I've never scanned these on my Imacon before, I'm slicing them into 2s. In terms of the other peripherals we've got going on with this computer setup, this is probably the most important one. It's a ISO CG247 reference monitor, so very good color accuracy, very good color profiles for pretty much like any color profile you could want to use professionally, like Rec 709, sRGB, Adobe RGB, all the important ones. This is just some random bank monitor, Logitech G410 keyboard, not my main choice of keyboard. It's the one I have that still works. And my 2 mice are a Final Mouse Air 58 and a glorious Model O wireless, which my friend Jono bought me. And that's pretty much it for the peripherals. This photo that I'm scanning here is from a trip I took to Dar es Salaam, where I grew up, for my brother's graduation. And it was actually the last time I was in Dar es Salaam. I made a photograph of a fisherman that used to fish outside the house where I grew up. This photograph is actually made directly outside of one of the houses we lived in while we were there. I spent a lot of time when I was young, like maybe 10, 11, hanging out with the fishermen, pulling their nets in and going back there for what I assumed would probably be the last time. I figured it'd be an important thing to photograph. I lived on this beach in 2 different houses. It was called Mbezi Beach, well, Mikocheni and Mbezi Beach. And I lived there in Mikocheni for 3 years, and then in Mbezi for another 3 years, I think, and then we moved to the peninsula on the other side of the harbour, or bay rather, from where this picture was made, and lived there for another 2. And then I moved out of the house, and my parents continued to live there for quite some time. This is a picture of my mom and my sister in the pool in the house we lived in on the peninsula. I think my sister was 13 there, or 12 maybe, and she just turned 16. This is also from like 2017, and it's a portrait I made of a security guard sitting on a property near the beach in Mauritius. I did a whole series of people on beaches and the different places in life they find themselves. So beachgoers, swimmers, people who work on the beach, people who work near the beach. And I never got a scan out of this one that I liked, so I guess we're gonna have a crack at it. So these are the scans I ended up choosing. I got a bunch of stuff from Mauritius and Dar es Salaam, and then some music video set stills. And my main goal was just to do a bit of a rework on the colors that I got out of them initially. This first one of the water lilies at the Pamplemousse Gardens in Mauritius, the negative itself was misdeveloped,
so it was really blue in the shadows. So if I compare the raw to this one, you'll see there's a quite difference, and I'm very happy with where that one ended up. And I'm also quite happy with where the colors have ended up in this one of someone playing frisbee on Cocoa Beach, which I made in like 2017 with my Mamiya 7. This is also a Mamiya 7 picture of the fisherman outside my house. I haven't done any dusting on these yet. Maybe by the time the video goes out I'll have been able to do it, but if there's dust then you get to see the joys of having an Imacon. This is a picture of my sister and mom in the pool at our house on the peninsula in Dar es Salaam. I was up to my neck in the water holding my Mamiya 7, which is something I was willing to risk back then when it was worth slightly less. This is a set still from a music video, a Big Pig music video of a rapper called Benny Mails, I think. The scene is just really nice. The lighting and the way the room was set up was beautiful. The crew did an excellent job. This swimming pool is in Sea Point, but it's empty because there was a storm and the swimming pool sits right next to the ocean, and the ocean water had rushed in and contaminated it, so all of the pools had to be emptied out. This is a snorkeling kid in Mauritius. A car from a series that I'll finish one day of cars in Mauritius. I didn't end up getting the colours the way I wanted them to be in this picture, so I just made it black and white, and it looks quite nice and still. My brother lighting a firework on New Year's. This is the New Year's before 2020, actually. And this picture of a guy and his pit bull in the Burkhardt, my neighborhood. I did this one mainly for a color comparison between the one that was published and this one now, because my color sensibilities have changed a bunch. And the reason I'm showing you a bunch of older work as well is because my compositional sensibilities have changed, and going through older things is a good way to, I mean, A, feel like you've actually somewhat improved, but also ground yourself, I suppose, and realize that even if you're making good photos now, there was a time where you made things that wouldn't necessarily be the way that you'd make them now, which is where most of my old work lives in my mind. This is another set still from a Big Pig music video. 24K if you want to watch the song's actual music video and see how these sets came across in the video itself. And to show you the first roll of film I ever shot, I'll show you the prints that came with it from Snappy Snaps. I shot this in a time before I was aware of the idea of film photography on YouTube and all those sorts of videos and the tropes and whatever else, and I figured you might find some of it interesting. So this is the first picture I ever made on film of the view out of the window in the room that I was staying in, testing out the lens that came with the camera, which was a Pentax K1000. Here is some drinks in a corner store, a photograph of a diner, mainly for the light, and then the remainder of it is just like street photographs and random scenes and that sort of thing. Pretty much all of the pictures came out, which is somewhat shocking because I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, when I made this photograph, I remember being on the phone to my dad and telling him that the ISO settings were a bit weird to get a hold of, and I wasn't sure like why it was so inconveniently placed, and switching ISO was a mission. He was like, no, you don't switch ISO. The ISO is the ISO of the film, and that's the way it works. And I guess having this role and reflecting on that time in my life is special in its own way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that brief look into some of my older work. I'll probably do another one of these sometime where I look into other photographs I've made at other periods in life. I just figured I'd do it because a lot of people message me and they're like, how are you so good? I don't understand, why don't I make photographs like this? And the answer is I'm not actually that good. I've just made an absolute stack of photographs. And to quote Mr. Henry Cartier-Bresson, whatever you may think of him, I think he's a bit overquoted, to be honest, but I think he or someone else said something like, the first 10,000 photographs you make are your worst, and I've only just realized now that I've actually made substantially more than 10,000 photographs on film, so once you hit 10,000 you can start re-evaluating your ability, but if you look at my first roll, I'm sure you'll see that I too, once upon a time, made photographs that are of questionable quality, but they led me to where I am now. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that and that you got some insights out of it into my scanning process and how bad photographs are that I've made, but at the end of the day, it's a good exercise for you and for me to just look back on things and see where you went wrong in the past and realize that you can take your past mistakes and turn them into good photos going forward. Anyway, I'll see you next week.
Happy 2022!
Alright, and Happy New Year.